For this problem, we're looking at sampling. And with this in mind right here, what we're doing is looking at two different studies, one done by the Boston Globe and one done by people at the University of Tennessee. So our first question is what's the population of the Boston Globe study? Now the population means who can we put our results onto? They were asked about the study habits of students. And with this in mind, if we're doing a study in 2010, can we really put the results all the way back to 1961? No. Studies done in 2010 don't tell you anything about people in 1961. So, no, I don't think that works. Any college student in 2010, well, they did this on public university students. So, with this in mind, students in public universities, we can't actually put our results onto any college student. So we're literally looking at students attending public universities in the year in which this study was done. That's the people, the population is, who do we understand better from this sample? So going down further, the next question asks, what did the University of Tennessee do? What sampling method did they use? And ignore the little error where this says 200 and this should say 200 also. The University of Tennessee went and sampled or did random numbers to get 200 random numbers and then used those 200 random numbers to select 200 students out of the 21,000 from the University of Tennessee. Ignore the typo down there. So they're selecting randomly 200 students out of the 21,000 undergraduates at the University of Tennessee. And as it sounds, this is simple random sample. Let's go over all of these though. To do stratified sampling, we might say, well, studying differs by class at UT. So we have 25% freshmen, 25% sophomores, 25% juniors, 25% seniors. And let's just leave it at that. You can't be a super senior. Your hair can't go yellow and your eyes green and all that good stuff when you go super senior. But anyways, I digress. Stratified means that we're acknowledging differences. That's what stratifying is, to create layers, to create separation. So the strata here is class of student. So if we say 25, 25, 25, 25, we want it to represent the population of students. We're saying that's actually the makeup of the university body, that there's 25% of students in each class of the undergrads. So if we sample 200 students, how many freshmen should be in our sample? 50. And the same goes for the rest, because that's 25% of 200. If for some reason there was 30% freshmen, we'd sample 60, because that's 30% of 200. Stratified is acknowledging differences and then sampling in accordance to the population percentages. So if there's 25% in the population, we should sample 25% in our sample of that characteristic. We need to acknowledge differences here. It can be, we could sample people from different regions of the United States. We could say in-state, out-of-state, and sample, there's 80% in-state students here at the University of Tennessee and 20% out-of-state. So our sample needs to be 80% in-state and 20% out-of-state. If we sample 200, 160 in-state and 40 out-of-state. That is once again 80% of 200 and 20% of 200. So that is stratified right there. Convenient sampling is what it sounds like. It's going out and sampling in a convenient fashion. It's horrible. It creates so much bias. It's going out and getting the first 200 students. Systematic would be going to every 10th student, every 20th. It's when you actually go, you would collect on the nth item, we would say. And it's important to know that systematic has a random starting point. But that doesn't mean that we are doing random sampling when we start on a random spot. It just means we have to find somewhere to start, so let's randomly generate a starting point and then go to every 10th person from there out. Stratified also collects randomly, and you'll see that it's not that it's multi-stage, it's just that you have to randomly select within that strata. You need 25% freshmen, so those 25% freshmen are randomly selected. Now cluster is a bit different. Think of clustering to put all things together and to take them all at once. Cluster is when you do not acknowledge differences and you just go to a large group and take it all at once. It's a cluster. What's a cluster of Coca-Cola? It's a 12-pack. What's a cluster of Krispy Kreme? It's a dozen Krispy Kreme. So when you think about this, I like to use the Coca-Cola example because to cluster sample Coca-Cola, you take a 12-pack. But to stratify Coca-Cola, maybe you take diet and non-diet. You take flavored versus non-flavored. You see, in stratified, I'm acknowledging differences. I'm saying, let's see if there's differences in flavored versus non-flavored. So let's get our sales are 60% regular Coke and 40% of the flavored Coke. So that's what we're going to sample right here to see if we have any defects in the cans. because we want to look at all of our cans, and we have 60% sales with regular Coke, 40% sales with flavored Coke. So we're going to sample 60% in our sample of regular Coke and 40% flavored Coke. And that is stratified because I'm acknowledging differences once again. So with this in mind, when I cluster sample, I say, well, let's go out and take some 12 packs of Coca-Cola. And in this instance, I don't think that there's any differences in the 12 packs of Coca-Cola. I think that they're all put in there randomly. So this 12 pack of Coca-Cola is just a cluster of Coca-Cola. That's all it is. It's just a whole bunch put together that I can sample at once. And the clusters would be randomly selected. We would randomly select the clusters. So we have the dean randomly selected 10 classes and surveyed every student. That's like selecting 10 random 12 packs and surveying every Coke can in there. So yes, that is clustering. List of all current undergraduate students in the University of Tennessee would be the sampling frame. The sampling frame is everyone we have available to sample, everyone we could possibly sample. So that would be the sampling frame. The sample are the people who actually respond. So with this in mind, if we say that we went to these 200, let's say we went to these 200 students, that is not the sample. That's kind of everyone we tried to sample right there. We might get non-response bias because not everyone's going to respond to it. Non-response bias means we tried to sample them and they wouldn't let us sample them. It's kind of like hanging up the phone when someone calls you for a survey. We also have response bias. Someone could be sampled and they could lie to us. And if you ask them how much they study, well, a lot of people might lie on a question like that. We also have undercoverage, because if we want this data to represent everyone, we might undercover a certain portion of the UT population. What if we send this out via email and some students just don't use their email? Well, they wouldn't make it into our sample, and we will have undercovered them. It's not really a non-response bias there. It's that they couldn't really get in. You could debate on this one. We could also say that undercoverage for this one, it's a little bit hard to give examples for this one with undercoverage, but it's when you don't have enough of a certain voice that represents your population in the survey. And if you look at a lot with presidential polling and stuff like that, they often undercover certain groups because they make wrong predictions. So this is a lot on sampling right here, and make sure to review this chapter. It's a lot of memorization. Good luck.